Alabama fans, is it time to panic with your football team and really your program? So, what has really been going on with Alabama football? Something that a lot of fans don't really understand, and I don't really understand what's going on. Let's start it out. Week 1, obviously you beat Western Kentucky. It's not really a good team for Group of 5. They're not a bad Group of 5 team, though. I will add, they are not a bad Group of 5 team. They have potential, though, to win the Conference USA. You beat them, 63-0, who cares? Beat South Florida, who's a decent AAC team or American Conference team there, American Athletic Conference team there. Again, who cares? At Wisconsin, this was a potential, not really, well, I guess for an upset. I didn't think Wisconsin was going to win that, obviously, but I thought this could have been a decent game, especially on the road at Big Ten country. He just beat the soul out of them. Now, they did lose Tyler Van Dyke, which is an unfortunate loss for the Badgers, but Locke has stepped up there for them, or has stepped up for them, not really against Alabama, but for the rest of the season. Then you had a bye week, and then the big one. You played my Georgia Bulldogs, and you beat us. To be honest with you, I know a lot of people thought that was a fluke performance, but I'm just going to say it how it is. Alabama owns us. And if you really think that's a fluke, then every other game has to be a fluke, which is just not true. To be honest, Alabama was a better team that day, and they deserved to beat us. Y'all were up 28-0. I can't remember a time Georgia came back from being down 28-0. I do remember a time in which Georgia has given up multiple leads to Alabama and other teams, and we won't go down that route. But then now you're high and mighty. This Alabama team's legit. This Alabama team is going to win the national title, or has a chance at least. They're going to win the SEC. And then you go on the road against Vanderbilt and you lost the game, but kind of got pushed around. Your defense gave up 250 yards passing, okay, but 166 yards rushing, so over 400 total. Now, to be honest with you, Vanderbilt had that fluke interception touchdown. It ricocheted off of, I forget who it was for Alabama, but a Bama wide receiver and a Vanderbilt LB or linebacker, and it fell into the hands of a Vanderbilt defensive back, and he walked in for a touchdown. That was just a crazy play. There's also another crazy play where Diego Pavia just hiked the ball on 4th and 1 and just said screw it and threw it up for grabs. And of course, Vanderbilt's Sherrill, I believe, caught that pass on 4th and 1. To be honest with you, that wasn't really a great decision, but it worked out for Vandy, and Vandy ended up winning the game. And Malachi Moore had his little meltdown, and Bama coaching staff wanted to pull him out, and he didn't come out. It was just a weird situation there. Then you play South Carolina, who's a terrible, I guess they're not a terrible team, but they're just not a good team. They have potential to go 6-6, but whippity-whip, right? And you lay an egg and almost lose that game. So what's going on with Alabama? Well, I think it starts with the coaching staff, as that's weird. The whole Malachi Moore situation, if I'm an Alabama fan, I'm pissed off at Kalen DeBoer for keeping him in there, or even not even having any type of punishment there, that's a head scratcher. Would that really happen with Nick Saban? Alabama fans, do you agree with that? I certainly know that would never happen with Nick Saban. Nick Saban would never put up with that nonsense. It literally happened in I think the national title game when we played you, where an Alabama player went crazy, and next thing you know, he's off the team. But yeah, that was just something weird and crazy that happened. But let's talk about Kalen DeBoer. And a lot of people didn't research this, but Kalen DeBoer, number one, he's a proven winner. He's won everywhere that he's been. And another good thing about Kalen DeBoer is he wins some of these big games. I mean, he literally took a Washington team that had an average at best roster in the Pac-12. They didn't have a better roster than USC, Oregon, who else? You can make a case for Arizona even. But that roster for Washington, I think they were in the 30s overall for composite. They were about slightly average overall in composite for the Washington team, and they made it to a college football playoff. Now, This is what Kalen DeBoer does. He wins these big games, but he's in the past lost some of these head-scratching games that they should have won. Like in 2022, he lost to a 1-5 Arizona State team who couldn't do anything defensively or offensively all season long. Next thing you know, they find some type of pulse, kind of like what Vanderbilt did, completely controlled that game and kind of dominated Washington and won, ended up winning and pulling the upset. They were 1-5 at that point in time. The week after he lost that game, he lost to a depleted UCLA team, got destroyed. Ended up winning out and beating Texas's soul in, I think, the Alamo Bowl or whatever. And then the year before that at Fresno State was the best team in Group of 5. They should have beaten Oregon. They ended up losing a close game coming down to the wire. That Oregon team went on the road and then beat Ohio State kind of convincingly. But then Jake Haener threw that game win and had a game of his life, really, against UCLA, won that top 15 game on the road for Fresno State. Mind you, that's another top 15 win. And then they played, I believe it was 0-4 UNLV, barely won that game, turned it around and played 2-4 Hawaii and lost. Yeah, he lost to Hawaii, having the best team in the Mountain West, lost to one of the worst teams in the Mountain West. And then later on in the season, I believe they beat a good Boise State team, but then lost to Utah State or something like that in similar fashion. This has kind of been the one flaw you can say about Kalen DeBoer is his performances in lesser talent and lesser teams, really, after some of these bigger games. And this is just kind of what he's been doing. He prepares really well against really good teams, but then afterwards, I don't know. But with the Malachi Moore situation, and I would be, like I said, I'd be pretty pissed off. I'm an Alabama fan over that whole ordeal where he just had a tantrum and he was late hitting Diego Pavia and kicking the ball. And again, I don't know what was going on with him there, but there was no repercussions, no punishments, nothing. So I don't necessarily know what's going on. Like I said, that's an internal type of deal with Alabama's coaching staff and their organization and program, I think. I hate to be like that, but I'm just being for real. Would Nick Saban allow that? No. But these past 2 games have been a giant letdown for Alabama. But big game DeBoer. In fact, honestly, Kalen DeBoer might be the best coach in college football when it comes to big games. You got a big game against Tennessee. Tennessee, on the other hand, I don't know what's going on with Tennessee, as these past 2 weeks for Tennessee, well, past 2 games, yeah, it has been 2 weeks. So past 2 weeks for Tennessee has also been a question mark. They came off of a big win on the road against Oklahoma. And that was big for Tennessee because they hadn't won an SEC road game in how long? I think since 2022, in which, did they go on the road again? No, it wasn't Vandy. They won a road game on the road in 2022. I forget. Maybe it was Kentucky, I guess. Woo. They own Kentucky, though. But they beat somebody on the road. That was the last time. I think it was Kentucky. The last time they beat an SEC team on the road. They do it to Oklahoma. Big win for Tennessee. And then their season has just unveiled. Nico has just looked terrible. So 2 teams kind of trending down. This is a season saver for both these teams. You do play them on the road at Tennessee. They're a much better team at home than they are on the road. But you can make a case for Alabama. They're a much better team playing really good competition than they are not. So you can say what you want about Wisconsin. They're probably a 7-5 team. They could get to 8-4 if they pull an upset. But they're not a pushover, especially in the Big Ten. They're going to win. They already won a game they probably shouldn't have. They beat Rutgers this past weekend 42-7. So that win's starting to look better for Alabama. And oh, by the way, you beat my Georgia Bulldogs. Like I said, a game that you were up 28-0 at one point, then 30-7. Then into the fourth quarter, it was 33-15. Kind of had a situation in which you let that game go, but you got it right back in one play of Ryan Williams. Listen, this is probably going to be a lower scoring game, but this is a season saver for Alabama. But these next few weeks for Alabama only get tougher as you play at Tennessee, home against Missouri, who already has a loss, but you already know Missouri is going to do everything they can on the road. there to get back into the playoff contention. And then at LSU, listen, LSU looks like a much better team than what they did week 1 or even week 2 or 3. So that's Brian Kelly for you, by the way. But again, I don't really Brian Kelly can't coach it's weird. Brian Kelly can't coach consistently throughout 12 games. For whatever reason, his first 1 to 2, maybe 3 games even this year, the team just looks way different than what they do by the end of the season. I guess that's good coaching, but like, where is that good coaching early on? Don't know. I don't get it. That's Brian Kelly though for you. But that's probably your biggest game as of right now, as LSU's starting to heat up. LSU plays a tough schedule too. They have 2 straight road games before they play you, but they'll be ready to play Alabama to potentially ruin your season, or heck, even this is going to be this is a good game for playoff contention. That's 3 straight though, by the way, in a row, as you play, like I say, at Tennessee, who wants to get back into their groove and rhythm. They're going to give you everything they have. It's a rivalry game as well. Missouri, they're going to give you everything they have as well. They're coming off of a game against Auburn. They more than likely will win that. And then at LSU, these next 3 weeks are going to decide Alabama's fate in the college football playoff. If you go 2-1, I think you're pretty much locked in, unless you were to lose to that Oklahoma team. Now let's, I guess, talk about your last 3 games. Play undefeated Mercer. Come on. At Oklahoma, and then obviously the Iron Bowl, which Auburn's quarterback position and offense itself is just non-existent. But you also play at Oklahoma, whose quarterback and offensive line is non-existent. Wide receiving core is depleted. So I think you should win those last 3 games without any issue. But I also thought you would beat Vanderbilt, right? And I also thought that you would cover against South Carolina. So Alabama fans, is it really time to panic? I don't think so yet. And here's why. Look at Kalen DeBoer's past. Even last year, he had 7 or 8 close games. He won all 7 of them, or 8. And if you watched Washington last season, they had games in which they probably should have lost to a 1-5 Arizona State team for the second year in a row. They probably should have lost that game. Got some favorable calls towards the end of that game. But also Washington State, who was 5-6 on the season. That was the Apple Cup, so it was a rivalry game. They could have easily lost that game. They could have easily lost to another really bad team. This is just what Kalen DeBoer does. He prepares really, really well against teams like Georgia or in last year's case, Oregon, or USC, who was good at the time that they played, or Oregon State. They were good last year too, by the way. This is just what he does. He's a proven winner, and I would not be panicked yet if I'm an Alabama fan. But some of those situations last week and into the week before, really, Vanderbilt, how the team unveiled themselves, how they showed their true colors towards the end, that is a concerning thing. But I do trust Kalen DeBoer to get things rolling in Tuscaloosa. You do go on the road against Josh Heupel's Tennessee Volunteer teams in a team that, an elite defense. They have an elite defense, but their quarterback, Nico, he is just not, in my opinion, he's not ready to be that guy. So we'll see what happens this weekend. I got Alabama winning and covering on the road as of right now. And I think it's not yet time to panic if I'm an Alabama fan. So let us know what you guys think, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.